Welcome back to Eliances Heroes, where heroes in business align. To be part of our super community and find out more about Eliances, visit www.Eliances.com.
All right, that's right. We're back again. And you know what? It's always an honor to interview who our next hero is going to be and stuff. I've had him on before, but before I do, thank you for the feedback we had when I interviewed Leigh Steinberg. So how is that tied to this interview? You're going to find out soon. We have with us the one and only Nick Lowery, Kansas City Chiefs Hall of Famer, well-known kicker, philanthropist, spokesperson, and he can be reached at nicklowry.org. Once again, that's nicklowry.org. Nick, if there's anybody that I know that has more energy than you, there's not. It's only you. Every time, I mean, we've hung out many times. I got to come right out with it, is where does all your energy come from? I mean, whether it's day or night that I've seen you, you're on.
Well, first of all, us athletes come from a narcissistic culture. So I'm going to try to disrupt that pattern. Disruption's that big word these days, and say there's no one I know that I really appreciate, more than you. Great friends. You're so humble. And there's also we're playing the Philadelphia Eagles next week. Philly fans and Chicago fans. I mean, there's just, you can always expect that people from Chicago and Philly will know twice as much as the average fan and appreciate what athletes do in the way it should be appreciated. And I want to thank you for that. And I'll just say, I was on the Think and Grow Rich tour for a long time. The principles, and really God's principles, are when you align in this journey of life and you make 100,000 mistakes, but you keep learning and getting closer, chipping away like a sculptor towards what is God's sculpture of you intended that we have to do the work for. And I've never used that analogy before quite like that. We get closer to aligning our values and God's gifts that are unique in each of us, you being unique in your way, Christine, the glue being unique, Nick Lowery being unique. And that's what makes us feel special. But it's special through, to me, what are the gifts that God's given us. And when we remember that, we serve something bigger than ourselves, whatever religion you are. And the closer you get to that, the more this energy, this primal energy, spiritual energy, not just emotional or intellectual energy, because you're serving and helping people. And there is all sorts of brain chemistry that we're learning in the last 20 years that has come out that shows that serves and reinforces itself. So what may have been as a child and as a teenager, a dirt path of that sense of purpose and direction becomes a super highway. And I feel that energy from you when you're speaking to the people at Eliances, right? Because you're doing something that is really literally aligned with what matters to you, because you're helping people too. So it's always that circle where I'm doing what I love, but it's also helping people find what they love. And that circle is what is self-sustaining. It's not something that can be taken away, which happiness, unfortunately, is a temporal feeling. But that joy, knowing you're doing what you were intended to be, why you came to this world, that's a beautiful thing. And so that's what sustains me. I love it. And you get better at it. Your intuition, you get away from the narcissism and you get more towards the empathy and the intuition, compassion, to understand other people better. And so here we are with Super Bowl week. And
I know. Can you believe it? It's coming up. I want to talk to you though about, and I think this is important, is the Champions for Homeless, and that's the foremost program of your foundation. My family and I, we volunteered for it, and I mean, just the impact and what I saw take place. You'll talk a little bit more about that, but it's just a phenomenal thing that you've created, and you've done it for what now, 16 years? Is that right?
16 years. And let me just give a lot of kudos to St. Vincent de Paul, because the staff that I worked with beginning 16 years ago with Steve Zabilski and Jerry Castro, and then Daniel McMahon and Jessica Berg and Tony and all those incredible volunteers there, and the staff, the board of directors, they're so consistent. And one of the things we know in all companies, for profit or not, is having great leadership and consistent leadership. You know, if it changes every 5 years, it makes it harder. Was able to work through all that COVID with the same people. And now Shannon Clancy is taking the baton from Steve Zabilski. But I have to thank St. Vincent de Paul because they're there 365 days a year. What we've done is help put a human face on the homeless and reinforce the idea that all of us are on our individual journeys. We've helped, I think, dispel to some degree right here in Phoenix, which you see in great contrast to how the homeless are thrown in what I would call a cultural waste bin of generalities and vague comments in California, and how terrible that situation here. It's always desperate. It's desperate here too, but with the caveat that the media tell the stories so often with St. Vincent de Paul and with Champions for the Homeless with more depth, with more understanding that these are real people. And it's brought in volunteers that are saying, gosh, I thought I was going to retire, but I was missing something until I found this. So it's a beautiful essay in what I call human music, where people on both sides, St. Vincent de Paul says there's no difference, and this is my philosophy, no difference between the giver and the receiver, because we're always receiving twice as much as we give anyway. And it also dispels these ideas of mental illness versus what I would call situational mental illness. If you and I were on the street for, let's say, 6 months, we'd have some major issues too. So it's a beautiful thing. And it's the best thing I've ever done. I love the fact that Phoenix has come together about this, and I really appreciate your asking about it.
And I will tell you from firsthand, Nick Lowery doesn't just have his name on it. He is involved with it. I've seen you were going from table to talking with, almost all of the people that were there who were homeless, and sitting down with them, and having them share their story with you genuinely. I mean, who else does that? Not many. So again, Nick Lowery, make sure you go again to nicklowery.org. All right, so what's happening? I want to shift to what's happening on February 11th, where everyone should be at.
Well, thank you. Leigh Steinberg is the real Jerry Maguire, as they say. If you watch that film, you remember Tom Cruise has that all-night writing session because he's tired of this culture of just money, money, money. And while he understands the show me the money with Cuba Gooding and that great Oscar-winning performance, he stays up his character to say it's got to be more than that. And the real Leigh Steinberg inspired me, and I started Kick with Nick for cerebral palsy way back in 82, 83. It won the National United Cerebral Palsy Award, but it really helped me because Leigh was saying all of us, but in particular athletes with this stage and this chance, just like you are using your stage to do great things, have an obligation to say thank you, to thank the schools, the mentors. I get emotional talking about it. Think about the mentors I had, Dick Johnson and David McElhenney, and just great people that helped me work through being rejected by 8 teams 11 times and then playing 18 years and setting the all-time record for most 50-yard field goals and most accurate kicker when I retired. So that's what Leigh is doing. And this party is its 36th year. It's at Salt River Fields. I can get you a 75% discount at nicklowery.org. From $1,000 to $250. May sound like a lot, but it's a 5-hour party with tons of food and drink, great music, and meeting some A-listers. My friend Harris Faulkner heard a rumor about Arnold Schwarzenegger, and of course people like Larry Fitzgerald and others that are going to be there, and football players and people from all surrounding football, and it's celebrating the best of humanity. It's celebrating the excellence in sports, what we get out of sports in the best way. So I owe a lot of that to Leigh, and Champions for the Homeless is the featured charity. I work with Copa Health. Their booth will be right next to mine, by the way. Yes. And they are doing a great deal of work with the mental health side. They didn't close down during COVID, unlike the VA, which shut down almost completely. So they were available to 15,000 people that were high PTSD, high suicide risks, and they were there for them in their fourth quarter, in their 2-minute drill, their overtime of COVID. So those are the people you want to party with. Those are the people you want to celebrate and work with. And Leigh Steinberg, I think, has helped bring out the best in us because in the end, when we have success, it's only successful when we share it with others. And that's what keeps us grounded.
And Nick, Leigh was your agent for 10 years. I mean, did you ever think you'd be in contact with him so many years later from when you first signed?
Oh, we are closer now than we've ever been. And he went through some tough times, and he's come back out the other side. He's Patrick Mahomes' agent. He's Tua Tagovailoa's agent. The running back Jones from the Packers. He's still doing a lot of representation, but he's also doing important things on the brain and concussions, which I've done a number of events here, and we're working together. I'll be part of the Brain Summit with Dr. Nicole there, with top people from Mayo and from all over the country, talking about what we've learned about the brain to protect the brain and protect the best game in America. Football is 4 times more popular than baseball, 4 times more popular than the NBA, and 5 times more popular than the National Hockey League. And it's for a reason, because it's not just the athleticism, it's the 3-dimensional strategy of an Andy Reid against Nick Soriano, right? It's the thought process and the 11 mano a manos, man against man. Sorry, there are no women in football. They're not being misogynistic here. On the field, 11 on 11, if you will. And those battles are so intricate. There's so much to watch. And the more you follow football, the more you love it.
Make sure you go to nicklowry.org to get those special discount tickets. Once again, those discount tickets going to nicklowry.org. Nick, I think I know what your favorite number is. Is your favorite number 58?
Well, 58 was Derek Thomas. My favorite number is 8.
I thought it was 58 because of 58 yards being the longest kick that you did.
Well, it's interesting. 58 was also Derek Thomas, who died, in the heart of his career. Was an amazing person, another Leigh Steinberg client, and we honor him all the time. I just talked to Neil Smith, who's going to be here, who was his tag team. That pass rush really made us special with Marty Schottenheimer back in the 90s. But 58, I had 2 58-yard field goals, which stood as the record for the Chiefs for 40. How many years? For 40 years, and it was broken this year. But
how is that possible to do 58?
And you know what? It's still the longest field goal in the history of the NFL in the first quarter against the world champion Washington Redskins, my then hometown team, who are now the Commanders, in 1983. My mom and dad were there. My twin sister, Annie, had flown in from New Zealand and no sleep for 40 hours. And she watched me kick this mammoth field goal in the first quarter. So those are great memories. And frankly, there was this far inside of 59, darn it. But those are great memories, and I use that as a kicker. What we're missing today, very philosophical today, is that there are few experiences to have closed loop responsibility, meaning what I do, everybody sees and can measure yes or no, did you get it done or not? And that teaches you to do one thing. Don't make excuses. Take responsibility for what you do, and everything you do matters. So that's a great message for all of us today, because we have this, shall we say, challenging media time where we have people on the right, people on the left, when 85% of Americans are hardworking, tax-paying people that want to contribute. And we can't ever forget that. And people like you from Chicago, the core values of hardworking Americans, right. You get that.
And again, we've got with us Nick Lowery, Kansas City Chiefs Hall of Fame kicker, philanthropist, and spokesperson. And he's got something to do with tequila. Nick?
Oh, wow. Thank you. My teammate briefly back in the day at training camp was a guy named Jim Bob Morris, a real good looking guy. And I had just broken up with my first serious girlfriend in the NFL, Tracy Render. And he met her about a year later and they married. And then he divorced her 2 years later. So we connected after about 20 years about that. He went on to play a couple years for the Packers. And then he got really good in Chicago real estate, building skyscrapers, made about $50 million on that. Then he turned that into an ingredients company. And then now he has Morris Packaging, made several $100 million on that. And he decided with Chris Chelios, another Chicago Blackhawk champion, the greatest maybe American-born hockey player ever. And they were staying up late at night, drinking some Casamigos and going, we can do better. And they started their own tequila company. And a couple of years ago, I met with Jim Bob and he said, you want to be part of this? So I'm a part owner. Jim Bob is the main owner, and it's absolutely first class, no burn. It's from Blue Weber agave, which is the finest agave. It's from the highlands of Jalisco with the senior female distiller in the industry, Senora Rojo. and it's done right. There are no additives, unlike Casamigos. Sorry, it's true. And so it doesn't have that bite to it, and it's oxygenated. It's been featured in Rolling Stone magazine, Forbes magazine, Men's Health. It's won the gold medals from Proof on both sides with our Blanco and Reposado, and won the TAG Award, Platinum Award for our Blanco. And by the way, those are double-blind testings, so you can't fake it. You can't pay for it. So I've loved it, and we actually were on the field at the Hula Bowl that I broadcast 2 weeks ago in Orlando with our logo, the biggest logos you've ever seen on the field. We broadcast on CBS Sports. So we're growing, and anybody that wants to have probably $100 tequila for about $45 at your local store. It is so good. And I am not a big drinker, but I didn't ever really like tequila until El Bandito Yankee Tequila. It's really, really good.
Excellent. All right. So we've got time for one more part here, and that's in regards to the Kick with Nick, the Extra Point show.
Oh,
Tell
thank
us about
you.
that. Yeah, I want to know.
Well, I work with Aquimo, AQUIMO. And it's a new technology where you've probably seen some of these. We have the QR code on the stadium screen. We're in 8 NFL stadiums now. Tennessee, Carolina. Where are we? Atlanta, all over the place, and Minnesota. And we're in about 100 college stadiums. And when you click on it, it'll take you to the website. You click on it, you play Kick with Nick. And we did this on the Extra Point show on Good Evening Arizona with Mark McClune a couple of weeks ago. And you use your phone because it has sensitivities so that you can actually get accurate. And it will actually show that there's a wind right to left or left to right. You have to adjust. It's not totally easy. And you can compete against literally, if you're in a stadium with 78,000 people like Arrowhead, 15 to 20,000 people. The winners, the money goes to charity or to, in 38 states, you can make money off it too, but it's just a fun way. There's a trivia game, and we'll be on television here soon to do that as well. So it's called the Kick with Nick game with Aquimo, and you can do it from your home television, but it's a wonderful new way to raise money for your causes. So check it out.
Well, I got to tell you, Nick, it's always an honor to see you, to have the honor again to interview you. We've been friends now for many years, and the energy, the genuinity of you is just phenomenal. I got to tell you, Nick, you're a leader. You continue to work toward raising needed dollars for the community and continue to inspire others to create a community for all. And you know what? That's a hero. You're genuine. Reach out to Nick Lowery, nicklowry.org. Kansas City Chiefs Hall of Fame kicker, philanthropist, spokesperson. That's right, you've heard it here, Champions for Homeless. I'm going to see you all. Make sure you go right to the Leigh Steinberg party. Go to nicklowry.org to get those discount tickets. Don't wait. It's going to fill up. You want to be there. And when you see Nick, say hi to him and tell him you heard him on the Eliances Hero Show. Right, Nick?
Hey, David, let me just say one last thing. Eliances is the best business networking organization in Phoenix and anywhere else that I've ever seen. These other ones, they do their best. They cannot compete. They are the Patrick Mahomes of business networking.
I love it, Nick. Thank you so much. Thank you for the shout out. You got to dance with me too.